was a brief discussion about the Akhbari movement, and Sheikh Shomali has suggested an extra session on it. She says if it was done, to please share the link with her, and says thank you.
Hello. I don't think we had independent session on Akhbaris. Sometimes here and there we talked about Akhbaris. In Usul al-Fiqh also sometimes we talked about them, but I don't think we had independent session on Akhbaris.
Inshallah.
If there is interest, so maybe we can, once talk about Akhbari movement, inshallah.
No problem. So, inshallah, that's for that one.
Thank you for
the next question.
asking.
No problem. The next question is from understanding, not understanding, but Islamic theory of education. And it has a few questions from lesson 1 of that series. So it says, could you please clarify what ru'ya and yara is? That's a small technical question, but there's a few other questions. So she says, when discussing, Sister Sumaya Hakma says that when discussing the discrepancies between tazkiyah before ta'aleem and ta'aleem before tazkiyah from the dua of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam,
yes.
Could it be that Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam mentioned ta'aleem first, since monotheism had not existed? So in order for people to accept purification, they would need some prior knowledge. So these are 2 questions. She has a third, but I'll let you tackle the first 2, and then we'll go to the third one that she shared on the forum.
Ru'ya, about which ayah she's talking about ru'ya?
I don't think there was an ayah. I think she just means ru'ya versus yara.
Yara? Yara is the verb coming from the root ru'ya. If I know the ayah or hadith she's referring to.
Yes, yara is to see, and ru'ya is the act of seeing. Yeah. That's as much as we can.
So yara is present tense. Yara means he is seeing or she is seeing. Tara means she is seeing. Yara is he is seeing. Ru'ya is masdar, means to see. If you mean about the Arabic, but if you mean Islamic ru'ya, it depends on which context. For example, was it about ru'ya as a kind of vision which Allah uses when He wants to refer to the knowledge of the Prophet? أَفَتُمَارُونَهُ عَلَى مَا يَرَى. This yara is not with eyes, physical eyes. It's yara with heart. So if you can tell me which context, as far as I remember in the first lecture, I don't think we talked about this idea of a vision of the Prophet. But if you can tell me, then I can be more specific. But generally speaking, this is from the root ru'ya, meaning to see. The second question was what?
Second question is about the order, the dua of
Nabi
Allah Ibrahim.
Yes. Hazrat Ibrahim didn't pray for his own time. He said, وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. He mentioned that prophet which you are going to raise, meaning Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, should do these things: tilawah, ta'aleem, and tazkiyah. But he mentioned tazkiyah before ta'aleem. Ta'aleem before tazkiyah. So this was not about his own time, so that we say he was concerned about teaching Tawhid, etc. Even in his own time, he was not the first person who talked about Tawhid, because before him, Prophet Nuh was there. إِنَّ مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ la Ibrahim. Nuh was the leader, and Ibrahim was a follower of Nuh. But for sure, by the time of the Prophet, the idea of Tawheed was established, although unfortunately was distorted. So even they used Kaaba to store their idols. This is the problem. They deviated from Tawheed to a large extent. Thank you for a good question.
Thank you. And inshallah, so the way we're approaching this at the moment, given the resources that we have, is that we're putting a reply on the student portal where we refer to the KLC, I mean not the KLC, but Sheikhna's YouTube page, which is on YouTube/user/Safinatul Najat/videos. We have the link there on the reply, and we ask you to look for the Q&A session for KLC students, and we give you the date where those questions are answered, so you can see the recording.
We have a playlist also for Q&A of KLC.
There's a playlist. Okay, wonderful. I'll inshallah refer them in that case to that specific playlist. And there's a third part to Sister Sumayya's question. She says, on the topic of Iman and Ilm, what if someone has a lot of knowledge but they lack faith? Is this person still granted heaven?
If there is no faith at all, no. To go to heaven, at least Iman billah wal yawm al-akhir and amal salih. So belief in one God and the hereafter and doing righteous deeds. Even if it's not a Muslim. Man amana billah wal yawm al-akhir wa amila salihan فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ. So, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِئِينَ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. So, if someone is not a Muslim but is a muwahhid, for some reason could not find what's the best presentation of the truth, but has something which is satisfactory, at least has tawheed, faith in the hereafter, has done good things, then they can go to heaven. Of course, in Adl Ilahi, divine justice, we had this, that Ayatollah Mutahari says that according to Allama Tabatabai, some people, even if they didn't die with Iman, they will be resurrected as Muwahhid, Tawheed Fitri. If someone was searching for the truth but didn't find the truth in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in religion, but was really a truthful person, if there is such a person that was seeking the truth, was studying, was listening, but for some reason could not find the truth, these people may be also resurrected as muwahhid with tawheed fitri. Then they can go to heaven.
Thank you very much, Sheikhna.
Allah bless
Should
you.
we take one more question, or we go to the discussion that we had from last week?
I don't know, maybe one more question.
Inshallah. So I will just bring it up. So this is about, again, Islamic theory of education, search for truth. They say that Sheikh mentioned in the lecture that Islamic education not only focuses on information and action, but also on desires, emotions, qualities of the heart. Further, he mentioned that sometimes actions become like habits. They no longer bring any change for the better in the person. Either the person is stuck or goes backwards. So my question is, the student asks, Sister Hawra from the UK, says, where is the problem? And where did it start from? Childhood, how parents raise up their children, or from how society in general is applying religion, or from a misunderstanding of religion? If someone we know is stuck, how do we help? What is our responsibility? So I think they're talking about how there has, the problem is not clear. Is it the problem of habits, that things can become a habit, or is it a problem of understanding that religion is not just about information and actions, but more holistic? So this was the question, and I tried to interpret it, but the question was that, and perhaps you can shed some light on it.
Yeah. There can be a combination of reasons. All these things can play a role. But even if there is no such a thing, none of these things, this is something in human beings. there is something positive in us which, if we are not careful, can become negative. The positive thing is that you can make habits. If we were not able to make habits, life would be very difficult for us. Imagine if you are a carpenter. If you're not able to make habits, you were not able to make, things easily. If you are a driver, many things, even learning language, your mother tongue or other languages, everything needs typewriting, everything needs develop habit. Okay, so this is very helpful if we can make habits. But the problem is that some of the things need to be done with attention, with consciousness. Okay? If I am, for example, speaking another language, I don't need to be conscious of that I am speaking another language, or I have, I am, using grammar properly, or I am, pronouncing properly. The main thing is to be able to communicate. And actually, if I think too much about, what I am doing, maybe I cannot do it. Even imagine when you make signature. Sometimes if there is something very important, for example, if you want to sign on your passport, it becomes very difficult. And maybe even you cannot make, proper signature, because something which is done as a habit, then if you want to do it consciously, it's difficult. So these kind of things which are like skills, you can do it with not that much of, attention. But when these habits come to religion, or more generally human relations, then we have to be very careful not to let this replace attention. If it loses attention, it's void. For example, you have the habit of saying salam to people. As soon as you see people, you say assalamu alaikum. Very good. But if it becomes like a robot, without really thinking that what you are doing, and without meaning, this is dua, this is a very important thing, the greeting and dua, you say just as a robot, assalamu alaikum. And the other person also, if replies without understanding, without thinking, without attention, then it loses the value. Or salat, if it becomes just habitual, without attention, it loses much of value. So human beings can make habits, develop habits, which is very good in itself, but they have to be careful that when it's a matter of relation, it's a matter of religion or relation with people, you should keep it always with consciousness, not as a robot. If you go home, you meet your family, every time do it with intention and attention, as a new thing, not as a repetitive habit. I can go and, for example, see my father, say salam alaikum, and kiss him, but without attention. Just do it quickly and automatically. I can every time mean this and think about what I am doing. There's a big difference.
It reminds me of a small anecdote. I hope I relate correctly, but it is said that Imam Hassan al-Askari had such a power in his eyes that one of the guards in the prison was known to be a very, harsh guard. He had actually transformed just by virtue of, looking into the eyes of the Imam. because of that intensity and that presence, that authenticity, subhanAllah. And may Allah give us tawfiq. Sheikh, now we received some feedback on the question of the week.
Yes.
Sister Anna, she says, maybe it's like speaking on behalf of family, feeling responsible to say on their behalf as you would for your siblings as a representative. So referring to, وَتَحَمَّلُهَا عَمَّنْ جَحَدَهَا. Again, that concept.
كل جاحد, of course. Any person who denies. If in the family there is someone who denies, he's included or she's included. But yes, others also.
Sister Alita Zahra from, actually I'm not sure where she's connecting from. I have to update myself. She says, it could be that I signal, it means that I signal and understand that this is the absolute truth, so much so that I'm prepared to take responsibility even on behalf of the deniers. So these are some questions.
What does it mean? What does it mean to take responsibility on behalf of deniers?
Question on the question. Yes. So if anybody wants to share as well a few thoughts on this point, Sheikhna is opening it up again. Take a minute or two.
Yeah.
Please feel free. But so far, Sheikhna, we've received those two things.
Okay. But Alhamdulillah, they are all, I think, moving to the good direction, these comments. And everyone is understanding that in addition to what we should do with respect to ourselves, we need to do something more for the truth. Yeah. One is that I should be witness and offer my testimony. Number one. Two, I should not do it alone. I should join مع كل شاهد. Yeah, so all witnesses should join each other. It's very important. Number three, not only I should offer my testimony and join other people who are witnesses, we need to fill the gap created by those who deny. Or we should remove the pain which is caused by those who deny. Yeah? Because those who deny cause pain, cause, suffering. If they just didn't, offer testimony, was less painful. But if they deny and reject, so we should do something extra to comfort Rasulullah and Imam and other witnesses. So you should do something extra always to fill the gap. I think this is a beautiful way of encouraging us to work harder. That not only you should do your part, try to do also something to fill the gap caused by others who didn't help.
Thank you, Sheikh. My sister Rubabra Tansi from the UK, she comments and says it is to negate the act of denying, and so by emphasizing on it we are disassociating from them. That's how she's looking at it. This is also a confirmation that the Prophet was for all mankind 100%.
Yes.
So there's this association aspect is a new idea there.
That's true, but how you can understand it from أتحملها? Because it doesn't say أتبرأ من كل جاحد. That is what we have in many places. That's correct. But here is a new concept. I don't remember seeing this often.
Sheikhna, do you think because they're dropping it, so they're dropping the responsibility and you carry it, so you're doing the opposite of what you're doing, and in that sense you are doing you're bari, you're not contributing to their denial by carrying it. Basically you're counteracting their action, so in that way it's a type of separation. So some people are saying it's a connection. It's very interesting. Some people are saying it's family and have to carry it on their behalf, and others are saying that it's a type of separation from them. But how should we look at that?
Yes, separation is there. I think what is very important is the extra work that we have to do to fill the gap. So if, for example, Rasulullah had no enemy, you were doing something, but now he has enemies, you need to do extra, because they are trying to reduce this light. So not only you have to be reflecting this light, but you have to also do extra so that the harm, the problems which are created by them can be fixed. It's like, for example,
Shaykhna, you talked about the pain, and the problems that are caused. Is it only on the heart of the Prophet ﷺ that he would be suffering on account of that, or is it more than that?
And also for the cause, because they're creating problems. One is pain, one is that they are creating problems. They deny. It's not that they are silent. Yeah, they reject. So how do they reject? They don't say we reject. They reject by saying false things, false accusations. Yeah, by creating doubts, questioning authenticity, questioning soundness, etc. So we need to do something extra.
We're getting some comments coming through, Shaykhna. Sayyidah Firdaus Rizvi from New York, she says, it means we see a problem and look at ourselves and see what we are not doing instead of pointing to others. From the Bendali family, we have a question. They say it's a counter voice. Is that the extra that we're talking about, that we have a counter voice? And also Sister Anna said it's also showing that exception proves the rule. When there are bad apples, it means that there is a tree producing good apples.
Yes. And then how it's related to atahammaluha?
The last point, you mean?
Yeah.
Sister Anna, are you able to help us connect it? We're putting
so there are witnesses. These are good apples. Yeah, witnesses. There are deniers. These are bad apples. But how those good apples can undertake the role of bad apples? This is the question. So those good apples should try to become bigger and taste better and have better fragrance, so that the overall fragrance of this garden is not compromised, if you want to put it in that way. So it's an extra reason to be motivating yourself. You have to motivate yourself to work harder.
You said that once, that love is a great power. It helps us a lot. Friends can be a great motivator.
Yes.
But adversaries or even enemies can be one of the most powerful.
So they shouldn't damage our heart or morale. When we see enemies, we should be more motivated to work. Extra work.
Brother Farooq, you have your hand up. Sister Sajida, go ahead.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Shaykhna.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So just as you were talking about this, it was just reminding me of my work in the corporate world. So in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, when we were talking about medicines, and one company is coming out with a medicine, and I'm working in the competitive space.
Yes.
Similar medicine. So they are developing evidence for that medicine, And then every time they develop evidence, I have to then develop evidence for my medicine to compete against them. And when I develop evidence, they compete against me. So I think the point that you are talking about here, if I may use that analogy, is we have to do extra work because the voices and the actions of the bad apples is so high that we have to compensate for that, but at such a high level. And so not only politically, economically, socially, but the reality of the matter is it feels like we are very far from that, meaning there's a huge gap. And so not only do we have to work hard, but we have to work even harder in preparation for the 12th Imam. Did I sort of understand your point?
Yes. Or, you can say, for example, suppose you are developing softwares for computer, and there are people that they don't help, and indeed they make viruses. So now you have to do extra. You have to develop good softwares, but also antivirus.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
If you just develop good software, it's not enough. Because we have people who are causing problem.
And there are some conspiracy theorists that are saying that the people who are developing the software and the virus are they themselves, because they want to make more money, for example. And that's whether it's conspiracy. But to the point is that we need that, yeah. So I really appreciate this analogy about the computer software.
But Alhamdulillah, all the points that were mentioned are useful, and I hope overall now we all together understand that we have an extra reason for working and making our witness stronger, inshallah.
So Sister Anna shares a reflection to finalize. She says that I think, inshallah, we'll try to close. I think for me it's a representation. She says a representation matter. It's a matter of representation. Good apples should be representing the tree and speaking for the goodness of the tree and being the voice of all apples, even bad ones, because bad apples were designed as good apples. Inshallah, it's getting very deep, and I think the gist of it was shared by Sheikhna. Just a last thought, Sheikhna Kareem. Sometimes when we think about compensation, we might feel overwhelmed because we look at numbers and we might say, for example, the numbers are not in our favor, or, for example, the damage is great and to reconstruction is difficult, damaging is easy, and they might feel overwhelmed. But maybe there's a thought that you might want to comment about and direct about Nabi Allah Musa and his staff. So he had one staff, and Pharaoh tried to damage the witness of that staff, and it is said that there was thousands, hundreds or thousands, a great number of fake staffs that he came and used and tried to show that they can be serpents as well. But that one staff of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, which was a real, genuine, authentic sign of God, was able to overcome the great number of fake magic that was, or the magic that was being presented. So can we say something to that basically when we talk about carrying it on behalf, or carrying it in opposition to those who try to dismiss it and to damage it, in terms of numbers, in terms of the numbers, should we feel overwhelmed and say, no, actually, how can we compensate for all of that? We're too few. Or is there something on our side that can make us actually very strong in this type of drama, let's say, if I don't want to say conflict or use other words?
So any person has to do extra when there is denial of the truth. So, like for example, if you are in a time that, for example, no one rejects, for example, Islam or Velaya. So your responsibility is to bear witness. But if there is denial, you have to also try to answer those problems. Do something extra to stop this harm being effective and spreading. Something constructive, but something also to stop the negativity coming. I mentioned also this issue of the psychological side of it, that, for example, when Rasulullah was in the early years just with few believers, these few believers, and then surrounded by enemies who were, making mockery of them, torturing them, etc. So those few Muslims, especially Lady Khadija and Amirul Mu'mineen, who were very close to the Prophet, I'm sure they were not just saying we believe in you. They were working hard to offer extra support to the Prophet. Yeah, they were going out of their way that, for example, instead of being one person, to be 10 people for the Prophet. I think this is a very important part of, good followership also.
Allah give us tawfiq. Thank you very much, Shaykhna, for this.
May Allah
Inshallah,
bless
we'll
you.
move into the greetings.
Inshallah.
And we have already received